Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Thursday, June 26th. Derek VanRiper, Sarris, Trevor May here with you. On this episode, we discuss a highly anticipated matchup that mostly delivered on Wednesday. Jacob Misiorowski versus Paul Skenes happened on a nice Wednesday afternoon in Milwaukee. Two aces doing it different ways, as Sarris will explain here in just a few minutes. We're going to take a look at some big picture questions like, what do you need foundationally to become an ace, to become the type of pitcher that competes for and maybe wins a Cy Young Award? And we will have a rookie starting pitchers draft later on in the show. So a lot of pitching talk today, and it was a great day on Wednesday watching that matchup between Misiorowski and Skenes. Elite stuff, electric, and kind of funny to think that only a year and a month after Paul Skenes makes his big league debut, another really hyped starter comes up, and they're running this lower graphic of 100+ mile per hour pitches, and Skenes isn't winning in that category. Which, if someone a year ago had told you something like that was going to happen, you're like, what, really? Like, Skenes is going to get out veloed by somebody new a year from now? Like, it would have been a little surprising, at least. So I was surprised watching this that they do have very different styles. You wrote about this start for The Athletic on Thursday morning, and where they were locating in particular is very different because of the way their arsenals work.
Yeah, we talk sometimes about the dead zone on here. The dead zone is average movement, but average movement on your fastball with regards to your slot. And I think batters have a sort of internal machine computer that like sort of sees the arm slot and anticipates a certain kind of movement from it. And what we see from Misiorowski is he gets 3 inches of ride on top of that dead zone. And so he gets surprising hop. What we see from Skenes is he gets 2 inches less vertical movement on his four seam than you would see from that. They actually have similar arm slots. So if you have Skenes on the left here, if you have a pitch that has less vertical movement than people expect, then you might live in the bottom of the zone. He lives east to west. He has a sweeper and a changeup. He has very sideways pitches. So he lived at the bottom of the zone and he lived east to west. If you're Jacob Misiorowski and you have surprising hop, you live at the top of the zone and you have a much more north-south game. As much as we've said that Misiorowski has poor command, that was a decent game for him. If you look at it, a lot of it's over the plate. And yes, he yanks it glove side sometimes, as you can see by those sliders and fastballs in on lefties. But that's just him trying to stay in on lefties, I think. And sometimes he yanks a little bit far. But this is a north-south pitcher versus an east-west pitcher. I think maybe some of this was overstated. Like in the future, I think Skenes didn't have it at the top of the zone in that game. You saw him casting some sweepers. You can actually see it in this. Right, you see those few sweepers that are super high. One that looks like it's almost going to hit the righty batter in the face. So he was having a little trouble commanding high in the zone. So maybe there are other days when his four seam plays better at the top of the zone. He uses it more at the top of the zone. But from watching Skenes, I generally believe he lives low in the zone. He's kind of basically a sinker. He's a sinker baller. Now he has a four seam, but he's a sinker baller. Misiorowski is the the kind of Blake Snell type where you have a high four seam and you drop your breaking ball off of that. Both of them are really excellent. I think there's some really interesting implications there that I didn't get into in the piece about the future. For one, I have to say at health, Misiorowski throws a 96 mile an hour slider. And I just have a feeling that the comp for Misiorowski is almost 100% Jacob deGrom. He has the Jacob deGrom fastball. He has the 94 mile an hour slider. He looks like a young Jacob deGrom without the command. And so, with what I see from that is possible health issues going forward. He hasn't really manifested those yet, but that's just something that I worry about. With Skenes, I worry about what happens when the velo drops. I think he'll actually be pretty healthy, but as the velo drops, then he becomes a sinker baller with 94 mile an hour fastball, 95 mile an hour fastball. I think he'll always be pretty good, I think the floor is high for him the whole of his the whole of his career. But if he's winning Cy Youngs, I'm saying he wins it early in his career, and later in his career, he's a more just a mellow, pretty good starter.
Do you agree with that as sort of the long-term arc for Skenes? Because Trevor, when I look at the arsenal and how wide it is already for Paul Skenes, he seems like a guy that's already laying the groundwork to have a more complete arsenal when the velocity dips as it does for everybody. Like I see a guy that's already like down the path of trying to become an A student in the craft of being a truly great pitcher beyond having the phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, I think we've seen there's one interesting thing. It's almost like based on what his comments were like in spring when he came in and everyone's like asking, why do you learn the two seam and the cutter, coming into spring? Why do you in two pitches? You were nasty last year. And he basically, based on his tone, he was like, yeah, I was like too dominant and I wasn't able to go as deep into games as I wanted to get into. It's almost like he doesn't want to get like a 12 or 13 strikeout per nine, because then he's not going to throw as many innings. And innings are definitely the most important thing to him right now, because he wants to take over games, because that's the only way the Pirates win. So he's giving me shades of like Zach Wheeler, right? Wheeler's really got great stuff. And early in his career, it was stuff, but he just couldn't put it all together. And now he's become this complete pitcher with still good stuff, but he's definitely not up there just like getting you out with stuff. Now, on the other side, Misiorowski, it reminds me a lot more of like he had more of a Strider approach. Like, I'm just going to bully you. Like, and Skenes doesn't seem interested in that, because I don't think long-term I think he's aware that only will last for a little bit. And then you're going to be in trouble if that's how you've pitched for a long time. And he's just kind of getting ahead of it, which also speaks to like his pitching IQ. What's interesting to see, I want to see out of Skenes is, does he have that, like, does he do the Verlander, or can he just like turn that on for a couple innings if guys are starting to get on him, or he like go super competitive, turn into Skubal, for example? Because I think he even has better stuff than his like swing and miss and his whiff rates and stuff are showing. He does have that kind of mid fastball movement profile, and he's had it since he came up. And I said that last year too. I was like, it's still a dead zone movement fastball. That at 94 is a bad fastball probably, and he's going to have to use
that's my point. That's what I'm worried about.
And the velocity is what is making it good. So if that goes away, what happens? But I also think that at that point, would he be able to just pick up 8 pitches and figure out how to do it and become one of those guys? Absolutely. But would the dominance factor kind of go away a little bit if the fastball isn't one of the big weapons? Probably. So I would say Misiorowski is maybe has the higher like pure dominant ceiling, with the obvious caveat of probably there is some injury risk there. I mean, he's like what, $110 soaking wet at 6'7". Like he's got stuff going on, but he's got the extension that Skenes have had. I think of them kind of in those two different buckets: the Strider, DeGrom, complete dominance side, or the Zach Wheeler. I'm just trying to I know we all don't try to throw 200 innings anymore, but I'm going to still try to do that.
Yeah, I could see that. An interesting side story for him is that I was talking to Giolito about, who throws the straight change anymore. And we were trying to go through some names, and turns out Paul Skenes throws a straight change. And he's actually been mixing the straight change and the splinker to the point where he throws them at about equal degrees. And that does show the kind of touch I think that Derek is talking about, where, he had the splinker. Everyone's talking about how great the splinker is. And then without, as much fanfare, he's actually throwing a straight change just as much, and he's playing them off each other. When they expect the splinker, they get the straight change, which is like, 3 or 4 miles an hour slower, and has more movement profile like his sinker. So the fact that he's already throwing, a sweeper, a regular slider, a curveball, a splinker, a straight change, a sinker, and a four seam, speaks to what DVR is talking about. I get that, but there's only so much you can run away from a bad fastball if it actually turns into a bad fastball.
So the Misiorowski ceiling seems like it's as high as any pitcher in the league right now. I think our collective concern is we don't know if the command is going to be consistently there. You talked about some of the pitches we've seen him kind of yank over to that left-handed batter's box. Even the fastballs. Like everyone's fascinated by the 100+ mile per hour fastball. He's thrown 62 of them already. He's thrown just 241 total pitches in 3 big league starts. But he has non-competitive misses even with that pitch. Like 10 of those 62 fastballs that are 100+ are in the chase or waste zone. And like that to me is like, okay, even if the overall numbers, the location plus number actually is good right now. It's at 98, good relative to expectations. I think it was an 88 going into Wednesday start.
It's 79 on the fastball.
It's 79 on the fastball, which then is going to put a lot more pressure on the rest of his arsenal, isn't it? Like the pitch that seems really important to me when I watch Jacob Misiorowski is the changeup that he's not throwing a lot of. Like when I watch that pitch and it's relatively new, it changed the grip on it for like, or a AAA this year, like he finally got comfortable with it. If he gets more comfortable with that pitch, that's going to go a long way towards taking some of the pressure off of that fastball command and that fastball usage.
Or not yanking the slider, right? Like if he can put the slider in the zone when he wants to, then that's something that Joe Boyle tried, was to basically use the slider for called strikes when he really needed it, so that he didn't have to throw the fastball when he needed to throw the fastball. So I think that there is some risk that hitters stop sitting fastball, that they basically sit slider and don't even try to hit the fastball, because they say you can't put that in the zone. But then you watch that game and you give Misiorowski 3 fastballs in a row, and he's gonna get at least 1 strike, and I would say most likely 2 strikes, because he was near the black. I don't know if it was just a 1-game thing, but he got squeezed. There were calls he didn't get. I didn't think he looked that uncompetitive. Yes, there were some waste pitches. Sometimes those waste pitches, I feel like he's 0-2 or something, and he's just trying to, throw the best fastball of his life.
Right, overthrowing it.
Yeah. So I think maybe some, confidence in, how this is going can lead to some better command for him. I mean, he could take some off. It's still going to be 98.
That's the next, right? That's the next thing. That's what Skenes like. Okay, I threw a bunch over 100. Like I don't need to. The whole there's another guy who comes into the league every year and throws the most 100-mile-an-hour pitches. It's probably going to keep happening because you're excited and you want to show what you got. And the guy who's there is like, why do I got to hold the record? There's always going to be another guy coming trying to throw as hard as he can with all the adrenaline and their family at every game. It is what it is. And now everyone throws every top 5, every first round pitcher throws 100 now. So it's like,
Chase Burns was sitting 97 plus in the minors and came up in his first inning was all hundreds, all 99s and hundreds.
Just how it's going to be now. That's the way it is.
Great day for pitching around the league, by the way. Jacob deGrom had a no-hitter into the 8th on Wednesday. I saw there were 12 starters that went 5 or more innings without allowing an earned run across the league. So, yeah, you like pitching.
This is like a day after we declared, it's perfect season for homers. Right?
I think a bunch of the aces came up, though. It just was the way the schedule kind of worked out.
Yeah. deGrom still got it.
What I think is interesting, though, is that Paul Skenes has been as advertised or better from day one, right? Came into the league May 11th of last year. He's tied for 2nd in F-WAR during that span with Sale. Only Skubal's higher. 1st at ERA out of the 45 qualified pitchers during that span. He's put up a 203. Tied for 1st in WHIP with a .93. Skubal and Brian Wu, the other 2 pitchers, tied in WHIP during that span. He's 4th in K- BB percentage. Like that's sort of the Strasburg. You're here and you're an ace immediately. You're one of the best pitchers in baseball. That's not always how it works. And I think I said something in passing maybe last week. We were talking about Tarik Skubal and going back in time in 2021, and none of us at that point would have said Tarik Skubal is going to be the best pitcher in baseball someday, because that level of statement would have just been very aggressive at the time. A lot of homers, I think, was the main issue that Tarik Skubal had. And you probably could have had a different sort of conversation at that point. You could have said, yeah, maybe he's not going to be the best pitcher in baseball someday, but he can still get a lot better. There were characteristics then that probably jumped off the page if you were looking closely enough, and maybe would have told you this is going to happen. And Trevor put together a video back before the season looking at he called it the Cy Young equation. So this is a bit of a spin-off off of that. And you start looking at a guy like Misiorowski. To me, it's like by eye test, he would certainly tick the boxes you need to tick to become an ace. Looks like maybe he's more of the is just an ace already sort of guy, more in that Strider, DeGrom sort of vein, though, in terms of just overpowering everybody right now. But I wanted to ask you both, what foundation does a pitcher actually need to have, even if the results aren't eye-popping right away, that makes you believe they can become an ace and follow maybe more of that Tarik Skubal sort of trajectory? I mean, what was your criteria that you broke down, Trevor?
Well, a lot of it is kind of just like common sense, I think. But I think you first got to look at the old floor ceiling idea, just based on stuff like what do they naturally have, because the young guys come up. Usually they're pretty close on what their stuff is. That's like the only thing that might be even, the farthest developed when guys get up. Like with Skubal, for example, I believe I saw his like second or third start in the big leagues. He was throwing 98, 99, left-handed, big dude. Like, you're like, first of all, those boxes, you don't check those boxes often. That's a big deal. And then you go look at why they're not doing as well. So one thing with Skubal, for example, is he didn't have the changeup that he has. So he hadn't found that change in the grip to make it a little bit better. But also, like if I went and looked at his Savant page too, like everything in a vacuum, which is kind of how I thought then, nothing jumps off the page to you then. So then you look at how does everything interact with each other or whatever. But stuff, it's pretty apparent that his stuff is really good. So if you're looking at Misiorowski, for example, you're like, his stuff is phenomenal. I think that we have the extension that makes his 100 look like 103. That is good. We have his lower arm slot, but his high ride fastball. That's like there's a mental dissonance happening in hitters that make it even harder to hit because they're swinging underneath a pitch that looks harder. So like these things are not really they are teachable now, but like we don't have to worry about him learning them. He already does them. So then you go, does he throw the ball where he wants to throw the ball when he wants to throw it there? And so in Skubal's case, you could look at his career over time and see based on, and I'm using True Media's statistics here, but like paint, which is edge or whatever you want to call it, edge of the zone, his ability to be within that edge of the zone got closer and closer and closer to the edge, which more often, which is awesome. He led the league in competitive location last year, throwing competitive pitches, but he also had the highest whiff rate. So if you combine, he's not throwing, people aren't chasing like crazy, and he's throwing tons in the zone, and they're still missing. That's another huge green flag for me. And that happened more and more and more through his career as well. So that I just get granular with the command, and I look at how dominant those pitches are still performing. Are you still getting the whiff and the poor contact and all of that stuff when you're as you start to your command get better and as you keep pitching? And if the answer is yes, there might be a Cy Young in your future. I believe of the major, and it was 5 months ago I made this thing, so I'm trying to think of the exact criteria, but I went and looked like the top 5 in a lot of the major command-based stats. It was like, Jamison Taillon, Miles Michaelis, like guys who are like just touching the edges, and then Tarik Skubal, like right above him. And I'm like, you got one guy who's a power pitcher, and everyone else is the thumber. So if he's in that group and he has the ability to take over games like he does because these people just missing stuff, that could turn into a Cy Young. And if you looked at it over time, basically every single year, how those same numbers were just slowly, he was moving his way up that list. Ever since he came off Tommy John. I was like, if I would have saw that beforehand, I'd be like, this guy's kind of inevitable if he stays healthy again, doesn't need another one. And that's the type of thing that I'm trying to establish. So I think that with Misiorowski, God, I so struggle to say his name, and I don't know why. It's just the command. It's like, how is that changing over time? How is the competitive location? That's one big thing I look at, because there's mental components of that. Like, some guys just miss like crazy because they really don't want to give up a hit in certain situations, so they just force themselves not to. Competitive location is really important for young guys. For me, I think it's something that people don't look at, honestly, because I don't think it's even on anything but True Media. That's probably why. There's probably a different version. But if you're throwing misses that are just, everyone in the stadium's like, well, that was a pointless pitch. If you're doing that a lot, if you're doing that like 20% of the time, then you're just simply not going to have the success that you could have. And that's where I started to build off of that.
Yeah, edge percentage is funny, though. Just to say, like, the leaderboard for that as a command metric, it's like the location plus leaderboard. You go through, like, this year, Tyler Malley, 49%, Eduardo Rodriguez, 48.6, Paddock, Jeffrey Springs, Patrick Corbin, Zach Wheeler. There you go. There's one of your first, like, truly very good pitchers. Zach Littell. Oh, there's Paul Skenes. And there's Zach Eflin and Merrill Kelly. It's a lot of those clear command first guys, but when you find a stuff guy, a wide arsenal guy that actually has some velo, and they pop on that list, that usually leads you to a pretty special talent.
Yeah, if you put it in stuff and location terms, when Skubal debuted in 2020, he had a 114 stuff. This year he has a 117 stuff. As much as he has improved his four seam and improved some of his mechanics by being a little bit less crossfire, and added the sinker and done, some things and improved the changeup. The stuff was always there. He had a location plus of 97 when he first started. He has 107 this year. So, that speaks to the sort of growth you're saying. I tend to think of things like, I want to say, hey, do you have a fastball for each hand? Like, do you have a fastball that works against lefties and a fastball that works against righties? And do you have a secondary pitch that works against lefties and secondary pitch that works against righties? I want to bigger arsenal guys. Therefore, I want to have fastball, sinker, slider, change, slider, curve, slider, splitter. I want you to have a slider. I think it's a slider league. I really want you to have a slider, especially if you're right-handed. So that's where I want to start. But then I looked at the list of Cy Young Award winners, and here are the guys that don't fit my rubric. Blake Snell. Let's see here. Who else? Jake Arrieta. He won. Blake Snell won in each league. Dallas Keuchel won it. I had more examples, I thought. But
Rick Porcello.
Robbie Ray. Rick Porcello. There are these like two pitch guys even that win it. And I mean, Clayton Kershaw is like largely a two pitch guy and it's fastball slider from the left side. So I think maybe you're right to think about the location, aspect of it, because that's where Kershaw really shines. And that's the difference between DeGrom and Misiorowski, as we've put it forward, is there's so many similarities between them, except that ability to put it where you want it. So the difficult thing is that you can come up like Skubal and do everything but that location thing, and you can grow into it, or you stay Snell. You can still win the Cy Young as Snell when you have like the good command years, and then you slide back when you have the bad command years. So I think somewhere between DeGrom and Snell is Misiorowski's future. I'm not sure that I see a guy that's just going to Skubal it. Like, I don't know. There's something about there's a lot of, another way of that people can actually look it up is waste percentage. If they don't have True Media, you can go on Savant, and Derek cited how many waste pitches he has. I think that's a waste pitch, is that a pitch that doesn't do anything for you. So I guess I would amend it this way. It's like, the Strider thing is, I do have a fastball for both sides. It's my fastball. And I do have a secondary pitch for both sides. It's my slider. So if you have a dominant enough pairing of pitches, then you can have that like sort of star shining bright kind of way, or even I guess a Kershawian way of winning. But I will say that currently my bias is a little bit more towards wider arsenals. I like you guys with two fastballs and two secondary pitches. and stuff on all of them. That's would be my like future Cy Young, I think.
Well, and I think that makes a lot of sense when you think about the quality of hitters in the league right now and the tools that they have, right? I mean, I think Jed's mentioned a couple of times the traject machine and how much of a difference maker that is in preparing. And a traject machine, trying to prepare for a 5-pitch guy, still helpful, but probably not going to make as much of an impact as trying to prepare for a 2-pitch guy or someone that depends very heavily on those 2 pitches at least.
I think they're also just swing planes. You think about the tilt guys. You have a high tilt guy and you have a low tilt guy. Well, the low tilt guy is going to be able to hit the 4-seam well, but he might struggle on the 2-seam. And the big tilt guy, the guy who has the big uppercut, he can hit the 2-seam, but he might struggle on the 4-seam. So, you not only have a pitch that works to each hand, you have a pitch that kind of could work to different bat paths, so that you can kind of play. And that also another way of saying it is you can pitch to all different quadrants of the zone if you have 2 fastballs. What we saw, I think, in the game from Skenes the other day was he didn't really have as good 4-seam. And he does have a better 4-seam than he did that day. Since he didn't have that 4-seam, he didn't pitch high in the zone. And what we saw, all the hits were low in the zone. So what did they do? They say, oh, he's only throwing low in the zone. He's only throwing east to west low in the zone. And they singled and doubled him to death. Like there wasn't any hard hits, but it was like, okay, he's mostly sinker-ish down the zone. Let's put our sinker swings on it. And when Skenes has got his 4-seam, he's a better pitcher. So, I think that's I still like that. Now when you get into this rookie draft, like there are going to be some guys like Misiorowski that maybe they're just the dominant strider types. But I'm going to have a bias that I've stated here. I like the multiple fastballs. I think Chase Burns should have come to the big leagues with multiple fastballs, and I think Kumar Rocker should have come to the big leagues with multiple fastballs. And when I list the organizations that I think are the best at pitching development, which are the Phillies, the Mets, the Yankees, and the Dodgers, most of these guys come up with 2 fastballs, at least.
It's I think I was trying to think of the common thread for Rocker and for Burns. Like, is there anything about them? Both Vandy guys, right? Like that's part of it. But Vandy, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think Vandy is one of the best places you can go as a pitcher in terms of the resources and things that they have available, right? Like they're certainly not
hitters
behind.
They're facing are just not this level. So I think you can. It's more likely you can do the Strider plan in college because you're like, hey, dude, I throw 98. Like if you're Chase Burns in college, what are you doing? What are college hitters doing against Chase Burns? 98 with that 90-mile-an-hour slider that he can command. Like he is Strider in college. That doesn't mean he's going to be Strider in the big leagues. That's another level,
Yep.
And I think sometimes you have to get smashed in the mouth, or you have to have an organization that's like, hey, before you get smashed in the mouth, let's see what kind of other fastballs you can throw.
No, it's a fair point. And I did actually pull together a graphic real quick. If you want to look back at 2021, Tarik Skubal. I mean, this is just what I'm getting at as far as you could look at a snapshot of a player right now and see something that looks like this and easily like write off the possibilities for the future. And you shouldn't, because I mean, look at the outcome. And if we did a year by year, if we did the 5 versions of this card, the blue popsicles that you see on Savant would start flipping and it'd be pretty much the dominant, nearly all red sort of page that you see today. But that's what it looked like on paper for Tarik Skubal just 4 years ago.
I mean, there's still some good stuff in there.
There's a few good things to point out. For some reason, my brain was just at when you were showing me that. I was like, man, it would be super cool if someone could animate it changing from year to year. Like you see them fill up or whatever when you go to the next one. I'm like, man, that'd be a great thing to see on a broadcast.
He already has 2 fastballs.
He does.
He already has 2 fastballs. He obviously, with a 23%, even without knowing the quality of the slider, uses it 23% of the time that he has a slider. So, you've got 2 fastballs, a slider, and then, in terms of, you the split or the change, you're like, okay, you're hoping for some growth there. And then you got the growth in the changeup, and that was a big part of the next step for him.
I was just thinking about some of the stuff people have been saying about lefties being harder to hit right now. And I wonder if lefties are also throwing harder, and historically their velocity on average is lag behind righties. So that might just be another simple thing that's happening across the board that's making lefties play up even more right now.
Yeah, I did see that we're at an 8-year low for pitches from lefties. So I think there's definitely something to the rarity thing.
No loogies. They're gone.
Yeah.
There used to be a lefty pitch in every game, no matter what. And now they don't do that as much.
It's a guarantee. I feel like that was over the top. I mean, I've watched a few old games where the pitching changes as a result of all the specialists it was out of control.
It was awesome watching Ollie Perez throw 37 in a third innings and 75 appearances. Good for
you
him.
missed that?
Cool. He didn't throw many innings, but he warmed up a lot. That is for sure. He warmed up every day.
The split, by the way, I just checked it, is as healthy as ever. I'm pretty amazed by this. League is right-handed. Average four seam is 94.7.
Yeah, I saw it the other day too. Rough. Jesus. That was my average my last year. I got out. I got out in time. I would have been average. That would have been really hard to handle. I'm not kidding. I would have been looking at that every day like, I got to get to 4.8 because I cannot be average.
93.1 for lefties. That's even bigger than the split's been in the past. It used to be 1 mile an hour was the easy rubric. I don't know if that maybe that's for starters, but
that's not as much of an uptick as I would have thought looking back at the number that was on that Skubal card, because back in 2021, it was 92.7 for lefties on the average four seam velo.
Yeah, it's still, even for starters, it's 1.4 mile an hour difference. So righty starters have a 94.4. Yikes.
Good luck. Good luck. Well, we're going to have a starting pitchers draft, a rookie starting pitchers draft. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can probably see the screen, most of the screen anyway. At some point, we're going to invent a way to have a more dynamic draft board on the screen. Until then, we will use Google Sheets and conditional formatting because, that's what I do. That's where I'm comfortable. That's where I live. There's two ways we could do this. We could do like our last draft, our bad ratios draft, which we all just played against each other, or we could be collaborative in the spirit of the MLB draft coming up here in just a few weeks. We could work together and try to figure out our board and how we'd like to order these guys. So play together or play against each other? What's the preference?
What is the outcome that we're looking for? If we're looking for careers, then we might as well play together because they're not going to remember.
I thought that's what we were going for.
Okay. That's long-term outcomes. Yeah. Yep. Whose future are you most optimistic about?
All right. Well, I'm going to put forth that we should put Jacob Misiorowski at the top of our board. He's just too dominant to ignore. 90 mile an hour curveball, 96 mile an hour slider, baby DeGrom. Like, what else do I got to say? I think we're putting Misiorowski 1.
All right. We're putting Misiorowski
I feel like there's a clear top 5, which I'm really interested in ordering.
I may disagree with you guys on number 2. So who's number 2 for you?
I mean, I'll be honest. I did not see Didier Fuentes throw when he made his debut, but I've heard good things. I really like Mick Abel, but I don't think he's 2.
That's my 2.
It's really, I think that kid can pitch already, and he's got a lot of good there, and everything's positive. Yeah, I'd say McCable's 2.
Okay.
I think I would take Chase Burns 2, but I understand the conversation with Abel for sure. I mean, I think for me, the belief is the slider is already phenomenal. The location's better than we probably expected for Burns, and that he has 2 breaking balls gives me faith that the feel for spin is good enough that he can make the adjustment and find another fastball if that 4-seamer doesn't get better. And I think the other part, I guess the related question of this is, are we kind of throwing out home park for all these guys just to talk about all around talent as opposed to, oh, well, he's in Great American Ballpark, so homers are going to bite him.
Yeah, something like WAR or ERA minus, and
yeah, none of those guys pitch in very friendly parks, do they? Except for maybe Fuentes.
Yeah, no,
he's average.
Launching pad south a little bit.
So all right, so it's you guys 2 votes for Abel, 1 for Burns. So I think that gives it to Abel. Like we'll make this very simple.
It's not like we hate Burns. We can put Burns third. Burns is going to be in my top 5 no matter what. When you have an elite pitch, you have to take notice. It's just I don't know that just because he can spin the ball, he can throw a sinker or a cutter. I mean, I guess you would assume he could throw a cutter, but for some guys they can throw a slider, but they can't throw a slider and a cutter.
Right. Yeah, that's been like a reason. Like, why doesn't he throw a cutter? Because then he makes the slider worse, and then it doesn't have the intended effect because the best pitch is no longer the best pitch, right? So that would be a fear. But I'm going below the fold for a minute just to bring up the other names because I don't want to forget someone who's currently buried. We're sorted by Stuff Plus, so there's going to be a heavy Stuff bias if we don't start going to the bottom of the list, and all the way down, almost at the very bottom, Roki Sasaki, who we talked about maybe a month or so ago, right around the time that he went on the IL. Slow progress for him. I think he's playing catch right now. So
the reason for optimism for him is that 1 green box, which is a pretty important one. Mm-hmm. To have a plus splitter, does mean that he has, I would say, more upside than anybody south of 15 on this list. I would take him right now, who's on the screen, from Jacob Lopez, Brandon Young, Sean Burke, Adam Mazur, Sagan, like Burrows, McGreevy. I'm taking Roki Sasaki over all these guys easily. And it's based on 1 pitch, and it's the 1 pitch that's better than all of their pitches by Stuff Plus. And it's better. It's a really good pitch. If you look at Kodai Senga through the lens of Stuff Plus, you start to say, oh, wow, he doesn't have a great fastball. The cutter's not that great. He doesn't really spin it that well. Oh, he has the ghost fork, So like Kodai Senga is still a possible outcome for Roki Sasaki. Adding a cutter like Kodai has would be great. Being healthy, maybe doing some shape stuff on the fastball. I think fastball shape is very hard to change. So I would just be like, can he throw a cutter that is good enough? Can he kind of, what I see is you spam your area of weakness, that's what I've been talking about. Andrew Haney throwing a slow curve, a curve, and a sweeper. None of them are good, but he throws 3 of them. So Roki Sasaki, if you can do fastball, sinker, cutter, you're going to leap past this. And I think would be in my top 10. I don't know if I'm putting him out of top 5. Anybody here want to argue for him in the top 5? No.
He might be able to push up the top 10. I think he has a high ceiling, but again, I agree with you. Like the other 2 are just there. I'll be honest, his fastball and slider are a lot worse than I even thought they were when he came over. I was like, oh, I thought these were better pitches.
We were fooled a little bit by, in the WBC, when you see these guys, and we even had stuff numbers there. First of all, he was the worst, one of the worst high hyped guys in terms of Stuff Plus at the WBC. He was like 10th in Stuff Plus at the WBC. He was behind Sonny Gray, who kept popping up because Sonny Gray pitched in one of the stadiums or something. It was like he pitched like a qualifier. I don't know what it was. It was some weird thing where I was like, get Sonny Gray out of here. But he was 10th. He was 10th on that list, and that was in 3 innings. So when we saw him, he was throwing a 90-mile-an-hour slider. And it's kind of hard to throw a bad 90-mile-an-hour slider. Now it's 87, and it is actually bad. It's 86 or something. So.
It was low 80s at times. It's like 82, 83 sometimes. Which not good. Not breaking enough for that velo. What about Kasparius, though?
I mean, Kasparius is
got to be top 5.
And then what I did for this board is I only did innings as a starter on the filter, so that's why it says 6 2/3 innings, because he's been following Ohtani and working a lot out of the bullpen.
So some of these stuff numbers may come down for him. What you do see actually from Kasparis was a harder time. He has a harder time with command in the starter role. So his really good K-minus BB comes a little bit more from games he didn't start. In games that he started, like the last game he started 2 strikeouts and 2 walks in 4 innings. The one before that, he did well against the Cubs. That was 2 2/3. So we just don't know when he gets to length exactly what the strikeout to walk ratio will look like, or even necessarily what the stuff will look like. But what I've seen, what you can see in the last 2 starts, the fastball stuff plus dip below 90, the breaking balls are all still there, and the cutter is still there. So, even if he's not a great 4-seam when he's a starter, he's got multiple breaking balls and multiple fastballs. So I would make an argument for top 5. I do wonder if he should be 4. 4, I might put forward somebody like Will Warren, who has a fairly high floor and has a wide arsenal and decent command. I think that he could be a 4 for us. Then there's Jackson Jobe and Jack Leiter, who I think have really high upsides. Maybe even Didier Fuentes have high upsides, fairly large question marks. So we have a choice here to go ceiling or floor at 4, I think.
I think if you are considering ceiling, Roki actually is still part of this conversation. I think one of the reasons he hasn't looked great is because we knew there was some kind of underlying problem a year ago. He's had a lot of injuries in Japan. He's still really young, too. I mean, even in a group of rookies, I think we're talking about a guy that has a lot of professional and big stage experience who's, 23? And I guess the hard thing for me to completely abandon is for the scouting community that has to try and project this. They miss sometimes. The job is incredibly difficult, but I keep thinking about the tagline at Fangraphs, right? From Eric Longenhagen, the TLDR. Peak Sasaki has talent on par with the best overall prospects in baseball. Seems likely to shine through in a profound way at some point during his MLB tenure. But Sasaki's injury history and 2024 downtick in stuff are notable. Is there a world in which we just feel better about Sasaki after some kind of absence because he's healthy again? Hopefully it's not a major surgery, but is there a world in which he comes back for the final 6-8 weeks of this season and actually looks like the guy we all thought he was going to be upon arrival?
That's part of the Tarik Skubal story, right? Like, he was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he came, he did some stuff, and then he was hurt. And in the process of getting better from being hurt, he actually changed the mechanics and got better. He came out of being hurt better. And so I wonder all the things you're saying about Roki Sasaki, that's my argument for Jackson Jobe at 4.
Sure. Jackson Jobe should be firmly part of that conversation too, if we're assuming a positive.
No matter where we put Sasaki, we have to put Jobe ahead, I think, because Jobe has just shown better stuff for us in the major leagues.
All right. So can we make Jobe 4 and Sasaki 5? Are we on board with that?
Yeah.
All right.
Roki 5. That's good.
I mean,
like
in terms of ceiling, Will Warren's ceiling might be here. And so
right. That's what, like, the question was, whose future do you feel the best about? Like, we're aiming for ceiling and trying to
putting
avoid
Sasaki 5, then I want to put Kasparis 6 because I think I love the multiple breaking balls. I just love the way he can spin it.
So you're Kasparis over Will Warren.
We're leaning towards ceiling a little bit.
Do you agree with that, Trevor? Ben Kasparis, higher ceiling than Will Warren?
It's close. I'll concede that. Yeah.
I mean, Will Warren's best breaking ball as a righty is a sweeper, and I like sweepers, but I don't want to bet on it. I'd rather bet on the nice hard breaking balls that Kasparis throws.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got a top 7, a working top 7 so far. I'm going to go to this middle part of the page to make sure there's not somebody tucked in here. I mean, Cade Horton, only a 98.
Sorry, we have not given Cade Horton enough love. I think he needs to be in the top 10. Just the slider alone.
Higher than where we're going to. 8 would be behind Warren, behind Kasparius. Again, kind of going back to what people thought of all these guys as prospects. Things change fast. If they can change fast, if Jacob Misiorowski can show up in the big leagues and be a top 25 starting pitcher or better from day one, then you can also quickly fall. Like if one is true, I think the other has to be true.
I think, yeah, I think Horton at 8 is actually okay for me. Horton's fastball stuff plus, and then the demonstrated strikeout rate, like even Skubal came in with a better strikeout rate to start, So I think maybe Warren has slightly more upside than Horton, but Horton has the better breaking ball. So I think he's in that conversation with Kasparius and Warren. I think we got to go back up now because Didier Fuentes has 2 really good breaking balls and 1 good fastball, and it's really small sample, and he's been really rocketing, but I want him in the top 10. And I think I would argue for Tidwell to round it out because as much as I like Jack Leiter's stuff, like I think we have seen a lot of this bad command.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that Tidwell is next to Leiter, given the location, the low location number so far on Tidwell.
And Tidwell also had a 93 location plus in the minors, so it could be a problem for him too. But I mean, Leiter's almost seems like sort of legendarily bad command.
Yeah, that's it's so disappointing because I think when he was drafted, the expectation was Leiter would be quick to the big leagues, had a lot of polish, it was going to be pretty smooth sailing, and it's been the exact opposite of that up to this point. But Didier Fuentes, I mean, this is another challenging rank for something like this, like trying to figure out how much of his ascent was need driven and how much of it was just he's too good to be at high A and double A. Like there's a balance there. I could see this being one of these exercises where we look back in a month and we're like, nope, should have been top 5. Or, we were a little too aggressive on Fuentes. Maybe someday, but he's probably more of like a fringy top 15 guy in this group. Like I could see both of those things being possible just because of how fast he cruised that system.
Yeah, and also when you're looking at someone where one of their starts is the debut, then you have to be careful with what you think their velocity was. He was 96.2 in the first one, 95.6 in the second, which doesn't seem like that big a deal. But, his four-seamer was a 117 stuff plus in his debut, 101 in the second one. So there's a little bit of a difference between those guys because in terms of pitch type, he's 60% fastball. So if he's a 60% 101 stuff plus fastball, then he has a different ceiling than if he's 117. Because he's a little bit smaller arsenal, at least as he's done in the big league so far. It's been mostly it's like 60 fastball, 30 slider, 10 curve so far. And that can work. I'm not saying it can't work, but like we said earlier, it puts a lot of pressure on each of those pitches being dominant.
Looking at this below the fold group, as I keep calling them, the guys that don't pop when you sort by stuff, there's a good, nice group of pitchers that get good results. Maybe
I would look for some piece of green, like we did with Roki. I would look for some piece of green, and when I look for some piece of green, the one guy is Logan Henderson. That fastball, it's actually sort of relatively green, 98. Because fastball's average around 96. So, there's that fastball and the changeup. I think probably is better than its stuff grade. I mean, it got really good scouting grades. And you have that nice location. So, if I'm going to make an argument for anybody down there, it's like Logan Henderson or Logan Evans, who has the really nice breaking balls.
Just get rid of that four seam and you're cooking, Logan Evans.
Yeah.
That thing is horrible.
I mean, he could just do sinker cutter,
Yeah.
Would you give the edge to Henderson over Evans if you're trying to choose future ceiling based on what you've seen so far?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's demonstrated results, but in my heart, a little bit more towards Evans because I like breaking balls from righties. I don't like changeups from righties.
What do you think, Trevor?
I think changes for both are great. And use them all the time. And it's last 2 years, it's been kind of a major difference maker if everyone's learning new ones. But no, No, I totally hear. I just feel like the longevity, like breaking balls are never going to go out of style, right? They're never going. If you have a good breaking ball, it's always going to have value if it's still moving and you still have good stuff on it. If the thing that makes it bad is it actually falling apart.
I did have this idea while I was watching Skenes that I wanted to if anybody missed that one, I just wanted to try it out here and see what Trevor thinks of this. Is that one idea I had for the future of baseball is that pitchers are going to have multiple changeups like they have multiple breaking balls. And so, we're basically, Paul Skenes learning a kick change away from a guy having 4 changeups. And that would sound crazy, or 3 changeups at least. That would sound crazy to us, even on the breaking ball side. If you go 10 years back, 3 breaking balls would be like, really? 3 breaking balls? But now it's super commonplace to have 3 breaking balls. And so I wonder if we're going to have to put names on these, because if you're the catcher and you want him to throw the kick change or the straight change or the splitter, you got to have different signs for that. If you're the analyst, you got to be able to analyze those differently. So, as annoying as it might be to people, I think we might get more pitch classifications and have people throwing multiple changeups. I think, Skenes might actually be the model for that for some people.
So I should still get investing in pitch comm because it's going to be essential in the future.
And they're going to have to get bigger and bigger.
Larger pitch comms. Yeah. the whole chest protector is actually a pitch comm.
The whole chest protector
arm.
is just buttons.
Just all buttons under there. But no one, it changes every game a little bit, so no one could figure out like which buttons you're actually pressing. The
Lighter's got to make our top 15 just in case he irons it out.
So because of the stuff being so high, I mean, Rocker's kind of buried down here too. He's making.
Yeah, I think Rocker's got to make our top 15 because he's got the death ball and he's been throwing the cutter recently, and that has really taken some pressure off of that sinkerish four seam that he's got. So I'd like to have Rocker in the top 15 too.
Rocker or Lighter, whose future are you more optimistic about?
I'm still higher on Lighter.
You're still higher on Lighter, okay.
The stuff speaks for, like, I just think that guys can figure out their command and will, and it is very much a click situation where like one day you're like, oh.
Yeah, listen, I'm the guy who believed in Edward Cabrera, and it looks like maybe my shares are finally coming in.
Like stuff is king. I mean, I think you know that. But and like command can be learned, and sometimes it's like one mechanical adjustment, one targeting adjustment, like
or pitch mix adjustment. Stop
pitch
throwing
mix
that
adjustment.
Pitch you can't command.
Stop throwing that pitch that you don't even know you're not confident in, but you're not. And then suddenly you start throwing, you stop throwing it. You're like, oh, I feel this relief. I didn't. Yeah, it's because every time you throw it, you're like, ugh, like just don't throw it anymore. Like sometimes that happens. You go, you look at your outing, I'm like, man, I need to do this thing, and then you go out there and you do the same you keep doing, and it's really hard to make those adjustments. Way harder than, because it's like a comfort thing. You don't want to go out of your comfort zone in the middle of a big league outing, and sometimes that leap is the difference. And I look at guys who don't have that issue, like just changing stuff, and that tells me that they have the best probably ability to completely reinvent themselves if they need to, which gives me hope for their future. And there's a few guys in here, like for example, I watch like Hunter Dobbins pitch. I think Hunter Dobbins is going to be able to find ways to be successful, even if he's not the most, like nothing really jumps off the page. He has a pretty good understanding of how to pitch,
multiple breaking balls,
and how to change, and multiple
wide
breaking balls.
arsenal,
He's willing to do it.
Terrible command. I'd be okay with a Dobbins 15. What is his current injury?
Elbow strain.
Yikes. But another guy I would put in the mix for 15 would be AJ Smith-Shawver. I like that splitter a lot.
I love that splitter. He's one of my favorites.
He's currently hurt too, so
are we just saying no Dolander because he's just Colorado? So
that was like, I was hoping to sort of dodge that as a reason not to take him. I mean, I know that.
I mean, he's got 2 pitches with 120 plus stuff, which just it almost is enough to be like, hey man, I'm sorry. This is what you got to do.
We could throw him 15. I mean, there have been some pitchers. Ubaldo Jimenez was all right.
That's true.
Let's
I
sort
think,
by
yeah,
let's sort by our rank now because I want to see how far off we are.
Yeah, let's have a look here. Can I sort it that way? Click in there. I use Excel all the time, and yet here we are.
Google
choking.
Sheets. Just select all and.
That's my lousy way of always doing it. And then we'll go. Well, we got to go ascending. Boom. That's our list so far.
Yeah. I wonder.
Now those are the best availables, kind of below this group.
One that sticks out for me that we in our rankings that might be too low might be Jack Leiter. Actually, I mean we have Jack Leiter behind the Logans. We have him behind Blade Tidwell, who's pitched 7 innings in the big league.
I think Leiter over Tidwell. I could actually flip the numbers on both of those guys and just say Leiter's 10 and Tidwell's 13, and I'd be more than okay with that. Because that 86 location plus is not great.
It is also 1 star, but it is backed up by minor league problems in arena. So
yeah, maybe if we and then do you like Tidwell over Kumar Rocker and Dolander?
Yeah, Rocker's got some pretty fundamental shape issues.
Yeah, I just there's something about him. It looks like he's holding on to his shapes with dear life. At any time, he could just go away. I don't know why I feel that way, but it maybe it's because there's been a lot of movement with him, like a lot of things
here's something he told me. So what's interesting about his breaking ball is he has that slot where you'd expect slurve, but he actually gets vertical, like he gets more like a knuckle curve. And I was like, "Do you knuckle it?" And he's like, "No," but he did say, "I have to throw it hard to get the shape I want." So when I throw it hard, it's like a 12-6. If it's 87 plus, it's a 12-6, or 86 plus, it's a 12-6. If it's not, it starts getting slurvy. And I was like, oh man, so maybe if you lose velo, as everyone sort of does over time, like you're going to get crappier shapes. That would be sad.
Oh no.
That would be sad. All right, so our top 5 ended up being Misiorowski, Abel, Chase Burns, Jackson Jobe, and Roki Sasaki. I feel like there's a little bit of a tier break after Roki in terms of ceiling. You get to Ben Kasparius, Will Warren. It's harder to say that about like Kate Horton and Didier Fuentes, especially Fuentes being so young. His ceiling is much harder to kind of sort out right now. Jack Leiter rounds out the top 10. The 2 Logans, Henderson and Evans at 11 and 12. Blade Tidwell at 13, Kumar Rocker at 14, and Chase Dolander. We're really, really sorry. He ended up in Colorado. I mean, it's beautiful there. So
I like our list. It's a pretty interesting list. I mean, we're balancing floor and ceiling and, thinking of health and thinking of the wideness of, their arsenals. I think it's really hard to anoint somebody like a great future player with like 2 primary pitches like Didier. Like as much as Stuff Plus loves him, like you're like, he has to.
A lot needs to happen. Yeah, a lot needs to happen to take the next step. Yeah.
But youngest guy on the list maybe has more time to still change. I mean, what was working for him to start the year at high A, that was just like part of the development. Like there could be more in the works in the future for him.
I only throw 1 pitch that I threw when I was 20. So, like,
there you go.
So that's just, and that is he is a unique. Even on this list, he is uniquely hard to predict because he like we don't even know if he's like really tried a good changeup yet because he hasn't needed it and he's 20. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if there's like a kick change. I mean, I know he does a splitter, but he only threw 1. So like maybe it is better and we just need to see more.
Yeah, we're trying to analyze based on 1 splitter.
I also just want to throw out 16 on the list for me, just because of his name alone is obviously Dick Fitz. Dick Fitz is.
Oh yeah, you got your Richard Fitz in there.
Not Dickie Love Lady.
Dickie Love.
That was a really
he hated
bizarre.
That, by the way, he hated it when I said that.
Really? And now he said he came out saying that he wanted to be Dickie.
Oh, does he? Okay.
Yeah, that was like
we go Dickie Love, and he'd be like, he's like, it's Richard. He would do that. Like,
really?
I don't know if he was kidding, but he just really didn't like it. Now he's leaning into it. Good for him. Good for him. He's a chameleon. He's just maybe he's just trying to hang now.
Maybe
I
he's just trolling the writers, dude. Just giving them something to write about.
I mean, that was 2 years ago. People change.
Well, there you have it. Our 2025 collaborative big board starting pitchers rookie draft. We'll see how this one ages. We'll have to check in like a year from now and see how much differently we would rank all these guys just based on all the information we gather in the next, hopefully, like 20 plus starts for a lot of them. And some of these guys will end up in the bullpen. Unfortunately, some of them are going to end up hurt. So that's going to shuffle things up over time as well. We need to go on our way out the door. A reminder, you can find us on Bluesky. Trevor's I am Trevor May. Eno's Eno Sarris. I am DBR. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this episode together. It's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Friday.
Thanks for listening.